We're looking at this word problem. At a 4th of July celebration, a rocket is launched straight up with an initial velocity of 125 feet per second. The height of the rocket in feet above sea level is modeled by the formula h is equal to 125 times t minus 16 times t squared, where t is the time in seconds after the rocket has launched. What is the height of the rocket when it returns to the ground? All right. So here we have the ground. We have the rocket pointing upward, like so. When it launches, it's going to go up, come back down, and hit the ground. Right. So what is the height of the rocket when it returns to the ground? Well, the height, h, is going to equal to 0. All right, makes sense. So we're going to let h equal to 0 in the equation and solve for t, because that's what they're asking from us. They're asking what's the height in the rocket, at what time does the rocket return to the ground after being launched, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So let's substitute in h is equal to 0 into the equation. And for part B, we're going to get 0 is equal to 125t minus 16t squared. And we're trying to solve for t. Right? So let's go ahead and apply the zero product property and factor out what we can from these two numbers here. Right? So what can we factor out? Can we factor out anything from 125 and 16? Well, let's check 8. So let's do 125. 125 divided by 8. No, that doesn't work. So let's do 125 divided by 4. That does not work either. 125 divided by 2 is not going to work. And so that's all the factors that we have of 16. So there are no common factors between 125 and 16. But there is a common factor in the variable. Both have a t. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. I'm going to do t parentheses 125 minus 16t parentheses is equal to 0. Right? So I went ahead and switched the sides of the 0. So applying the zero product property, now I can set a equal to 0 and b equal to 0 and solve for t. Right? So I'm going to set t is equal to 0, and I'm also going to say 125 minus 16t is equal to 0. I'm setting my a equal to 0, and I'm setting my b equal to 0. So a is already solved for. That's one possibility. And b needs to be solved for. So I'm going to minus 125 from both sides. And that's going to leave me with negative 16t is equal to negative 125. Divide by negative 16 on both sides. And I'm going to break out my calculator. And I'll get 125 divided by negative 16 is equal to... So I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to say t is equal to positive 7.8125. All right. So what does this mean? This is 0. That means the rocket is here and has not yet been launched. Or when t is equal to 7.8125 seconds. Okay. And what does that mean? That means it's been launched and it came back down. It hit the ground again when time is equal to 7.8125 seconds. And so that answers question C as well. Right? So question A, what is the height of the rocket when it returns to the ground? It's going to be 0. Question B, let h equal to 0 and solve for t. Okay, so t is going to be either 0 or 7.8125 seconds. And then C, how many seconds will it take for the rocket to return to the ground? Well, it's not going to take 0 seconds for it to return to the ground. Right? It's going to take 7.8125 seconds. And that is that word problem.